Hi, I'm Will. Okay, maybe I'm not Will. But this is What's Leaving and What's Left, a podcast about divorce. Why what's leaving and what's left? Well, maybe you're leaving and maybe you're left. Which is to say, this is a show about divorce. It isn't a how-to guide. It definitely isn't a substitute for legal representation or therapy, although we will plead with you, please look into both those things. It might be good to mention here that there's nothing here to be construed as legal or medical advice. What's leaving and what's left is real divorce stories of real people. The idea came to me when I realized how many men I knew were going through divorces that would never look for help as they deal with divorce, or that when help was offered, they would never accept it. And yet when they found themselves in a divorce, they wanted to talk to me about it. Interestingly enough, but maybe not surprisingly, their stories, and maybe yours, have a lot in common with each other. And while I can't claim to be an expert on divorce, relationships, psychology, anything, I think finding familiarity and common ground in some of these stories might be soothing and somewhat therapeutic. And maybe, at the very least, we can provide a parasocial group for people having trouble finding, or people having trouble even beginning to look for, help.
Hey, look at that.
We did it. Welcome back to another episode of What's Leaving and What's Left. My name is Will, and today we have a special guest joining us. We took a little 3-week hiatus, but we are joined today by Roland. Roland, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for being here. You made a trek from some distance away, and I appreciate you making some time to get down here.
It's my pleasure.
We're going to be revisiting like an old story for you, it sounds like.
Yep.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about yourself. How old are you?
I am 44 years old.
44 years old. Now, you were previously married, and that's why you're on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, I was married about, my divorce finalized 13 years ago.
Okay, finalized 13 years ago.
Yep.
How long were you married?
6 years total.
Okay, 6 years married. What time, what age were you then? Does that
I got married at 24, divorced
That's very
officially
young.
at 31.
Does that feel very young? Like, I mean, for our generation?
Super young.
Yeah.
If I was to go back, obviously, I would tell myself not to get married at 24.
Sure.
Yeah.
Were you like high school sweethearts? Or?
Yeah. So I met her while we were working together at a teenage job. It was just your local little, family fun place that we worked together at.
Okay.
And by the time we got together when I was like 20 finally, but we were friends since I was 16.
Okay, got together when you were 20, friends since 16. Okay, so
Yeah.
kind of high school sweethearts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You know what I want to jump into?
What's that?
Cue Jimmy Eat World. Dun, 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 dun. I want to start in the middle.
Okay.
Little girl, you're in the middle.
So
where
is it middle of divorce or like middle marriage?
Yeah, no. So it is the middle is the conversation, which evidently was not a conversation as we talked off mic.
Mm-hmm.
But when was it that you decided, or she decided, or you mutually decided that you were going to get a divorce? What did that look like?
So when we actually had a talk about a divorce, it was about maybe 2 years after we had already split up once and got back together. Okay. It was on a Christmas day, and she rolled over in bed and said, "I'm too afraid to do this." I'm like, "Here it comes."
Oh boy!
Yeah.
So you saw signs?
Yeah, signs.
Okay.
If we backtracked it, it was 2 years prior, like 5 days from Christmas, that she went through my phone and there was an explosive separation on a mountain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You were like literally on a mountain? You were like
camping? Yeah. We were coming down from a mountain. We were just looking at some snow, and I was like, you know what? I'm really gonna try to give this marriage a shot. I'd already been cheating on her for like 4 or 5 months or something.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
Yeah.
And then in that moment, she
Yep.
found a cell phone, and she found.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did that go? I'm assuming that was the beginning of the end.
Who the fuck is this? I was like, oh, that's the girl I work with. And at this time I was working at an office job. And and I was like, oh, this is so-and-so. And it's exactly what you think. And then I was called, motherfucker and all that stuff.
Oh, sure.
All the way down the mountain until we reached a place on the side of the freeway where her mom picked her up, and she took off. And I was getting yelled at. She's crying the whole time, all that stuff.
And that was when
So this is like
immediately preceded the divorce.
This is preceded, no, because I separated and then we tried to do it again.
Okay, so that was the first separation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so
now,
it was a long time coming because it was like a build-up of things. Yeah.
So you got back together after that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then something happened Christmas Day, something happened in the lead up to Christmas.
So I was with her, and it's a hard thing. If we're going to backtrack to what a lot of the issues were, we were living with her parents.
Okay.
And so when I moved, what we did was we separated, and I lived in another part of like the actual city of where we live.
Yeah.
And was enjoying my like free time and hanging out and doing all of, going out and doing stuff that I missed when I was in my 20s.
Sure.
And then we did that separated after the whole mountain thing. And then like decided to get back, try it again after 5 months. So I moved back in with her family.
Okay.
And it was rough. So,
but you weren't living with her family the entire time you were married.
No,
It was just post separation.
Yeah.
Working on it, back in with her family.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Just just take me up to. We'll work back to.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out
moving back in
where
with
you
the
want to
family.
go.
But like let's go back to Christmas Day. She rolled over and said, I don't know how to do
so
this."
This is 2000 and I want to say 10. She's like, "I'm too chicken to do this," and I was like, "All right, let's go outside." And this is when I was smoking, so we went outside and had a cigarette and had a very productive conversation about getting a divorce.
Okay.
This
So
was her
it
decision.
was you guys were on the same page. It was
Yeah.
not heated.
Yeah, no, I wasn't heated. There was a lot of space in between us for about 6 months there, where she just kind of wasn't even home. And so it was just me at home with my dogs, and my friends would come over once in a while, have beers on the weekends and stuff.
And you were getting the impression that maybe, or did you get an impression that she was
no,
intentionally distancing?
No, I think it was mostly because she got a new career.
Okay.
She was in the hospitality industry, mostly in hotels. So like they like to go out and party and stuff during the weekends as executives. Now she was, so she was doing that kind of stuff. So
okay.
yeah.
And so you were on the same page about all that.
I'm like, why are we even trying?
And you didn't have kids. You didn't.
No children.
You were living with the parents. So the divorce process itself, how long did that take?
About a year. As soon as I split up with her, I did what most people shouldn't do and started a relationship right away with somebody that was a lot younger than me. And she lived with me. She moved in with me eventually within about 2 months after we had split up, actually, and I got my own place.
Oh, wow.
And so
2 months.
Yeah, pretty much.
Dang.
Yeah. From Texas too.
Wow.
I have a weird story.
No.
Yeah,
I mean, it's important to have exes in Texas.
Yeah,
That's my understanding.
Yeah, but she moved down, and we, again, very amicably just went through the paperwork and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're kind of living our own lives for about a year, and then she's like, "We should probably do this." I'm like, "Yeah, let's go to court.
Just sign the paperwork.
Yeah, get it over with."
And are you guys amicable to this day? There wasn't a whole lot of litigation. There was no
no, not
I'm
really.
coming after your retirement.
No, there wasn't any of that because only thing we really got really upset about was I had a German short-haired pointer that I really loved, and she's like, "I'm keeping the dog." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm living somewhere where I can't have her anyway." But yeah, so it was amicable. We didn't have much of anything to split up. I don't talk to her because we didn't have any children.
Sure. There's no reason to continue the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to kind of stay friends because we knew each other since high school. I mean, you can't. It's something you can still be friends with those people, but we split up. There was a point in time where I was dating somebody and she said something really terrible, and I'm like, I just don't need you in my life. Why do I need this?
Right.
So, yeah.
Because that seems unnecessary. Like we've had enough space. We were on the same page about splitting up. There's no reason to come at me or come at her or whatever the fuck.
And it was like 2 whole years later with somebody she didn't even know. So it was like one of those type of things where I was trying to keep it going as a friendship.
Yeah.
After a while, you kind of grow up and look at something and be like, "This is you." Okay.
It's a little wishful thinking, and then in hindsight, like I think you and I both know, like you wish that if the divorce goes smoothly and you're not litigating and you're not coming after each other's assets or children or whatever, then maybe you can still hang out and be friends. But it's like, no, it doesn't. It's just something. I don't know.
I don't know what it is either. Like, there's no ownership over another person.
No.
You know what I mean? And I was kind of having that mentality of having it that way, of being like this sort of thing. But I'm like, dude, maybe you're just an awful person, and I had a reason for this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing. So
yeah. So do you feel? So let's talk about the marriage itself.
Okay.
So you were with her for a while before you started seeing somebody in this intra-office romance.
Yeah.
situation.
So I had when I first met her, from the time I was basically just out of high school until around 2008, I was working for the industry of building housing. So I was a union operator. I made $36 an hour at that time. Which is we're talking like
in that economy, that's fucking
2002 money. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was making that much money. And so like we had funding, like she literally, we're married. She would be like, oh, I want to be like, I want to get into esthetician. It's cool. I'll pay you through school. We had our own place already. You can go for 6 months. Don't even worry about anything. I'll take care of the bills. Just do whatever your dream is. Okay. Well, now I want to go do this career or whatever you want to do. Just, money's flowing through.
Nice.
Tight. And so in that industry, though, it's a very male-based industry. There's no other women or anything that cross your path. So you can fundamentally, if you never want to challenge your entire marriage, construction's the way to go.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You never know. You might start. I talked to. We had a guest on who was in the Navy, and he's like, "Listen, that doesn't mean romance doesn't happen just because you're on a boat full of dudes."
Yeah, it's fair. That's fair. I mean, when you're running a scraper, you're by yourself, so you're not really showering.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was great, and then the housing bubble burst in 2008, and I just decided to, I hate this kind of. I didn't really like the job that much, and I was like, well, cool. I'm gonna get into another industry, which had growth, which I was in beer. And so I got into that, and that pays fuck all.
Yeah.
And so
tips.
I was doing that. So not only was I relying on her for the income because she was moving up in whatever job she had in her career. I was also in a whole industry of just very liberal women around me.
Sure.
Very
that are drinking.
Different set of rules.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. So basically just hooked up with somebody in a different department and off we went. So after that much time together, it was kind of mixing with that, a new different lifestyle, new different stuff for both of us. And like, it was just it was a perfect storm of just stuff. And plus me being a coward, I mean, who cheats on their wife without just being like, screw this amount.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so yeah, it's tough. And we've had stories of infidelity on the show, and it is the common thread, my thread too. It is very much like, well, I didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah. And you could have.
You don't want to address it or and in a lot of cases it's not just that you don't want to talk about it, it's that you both don't.
Yeah.
That there's some distance that has grown between you where it's just not, the conversation is never open enough to touch on subjects like, here's why I'm unhappy.
Yeah.
Here's what I think needs to happen. Here's how, like what's going on with you. And it just, if it's never open, then it's like, well, maybe I just cheat. Maybe I just get caught, and maybe that's the end of it. And I don't have to fucking have a conversation, which ultimately seems easier.
Yeah. Yeah. but it's a lot more trauma, and things don't ever work out the way you think they are.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that all tracks. So in the 8 years, eight years now since you've been divorced.
It's been about 13 years.
So you've had quite a journey, and you're sober now.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I bring that up?
Yeah,
okay,
I've been sober for 15 months.
So congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Definitely respect that journey. So with that, you worked in the beer industry, and I also have spent time with the industry and in the industry, and I feel like there is a commonality. There's a thread that you can pull in alcohol in general, in like hospitality, anywhere where alcohol is served. And when you pull that thread hard enough, you get about 75% of married couples getting divorced.
Yeah.
Owners down to barbacks.
Yep.
Like it's just a common thread. Do you think was it the hospitality industry? Was it alcohol in general? Or do you have any thoughts on that?
As far as the divorce goes, I'm pretty sure I wanted to bail out anyway.
Okay.
The alcoholism didn't happen until, I think it was like when we split up, I started drinking, like where I worked at, you can get a growler for free every day. And I was just pounding that like when I was off and we were splitting up. So already the seeds were beginning for the alcoholism.
Sure.
But it was tight. Like it was smaller. I wouldn't say I was a full blown alcoholic until somewhere around like 2016.
2016 was a rough year for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a trying time. Okay. So with that,
but I mean, there's more in that life, but even after I got out of the marriage, I was pretty much a serial monogamist. So like,
relationship to relationship.
Yeah.
You dated somebody, you moved in with somebody 2 months after.
It was 2 months. 2 years was my usual span.
Uh-huh.
Like it was around that average, like 2, maybe 2.5 years.
Just enough to like really feel it.
Yeah.
Just enough to like
And
get your heart
and then
truly broken.
It was usually them too. They were just like, this isn't working out. And I'm like, yeah, I guess so, right? Like,
I guess I'm not gonna fight you on this.
yeah, I mean, like you say I'm terrible at some stuff, and I guess I am, And it was mostly because I didn't learn from my marriage to actually evolve or change the way I actually acted or did things. I was still in that mode of like, this is just who I am. Fuck you.
Right. Right.
So.
Yeah, that's a question I wanted to ask is like, how much would you attribute any of the alcoholism, the addiction, to like issues that were unprocessed from the marriage or still processing the marriage and divorce? And
I mean, like it was able to, when I became sober, I was able to process my ego. So like he was able to break that hold down and get that sort of thing, get that out of the way. In my mind, from the time I started getting sober, from the time all that before started, in my head, I was still like 32 years old.
Okay.
And I'm 43 when I was starting this whole thing. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so you have a lot of time, a gap of time that you have not changed pretty much your whole thinking or the way you process emotions or anything for that entire time. So you like need a quick course on like how to become a 40-year-old man.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of the breaking down of ego. There's breaking down of my moral compass. Like I didn't really have one. I had to figure out what that was. Had to figure out what integrity actually was. Things like that, where you have to like get down the groundwork of what normal people at my age already have been doing for 20 years, doing it now.
So what are some of those tools that help you? Like we can talk, very broadly about breaking down ego, getting a moral compass. What are like tools that are utilized to do that? I have ideas, but I do not know what it looks like for you.
It's probably the same as like what you guys do with therapy. We do in meetings.
Okay.
So like I did your standard AA. So I went through all the stuff. There's a lot of processes in AA of like, making amends, doing all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that I thought was quackery before I got into this. And now I was just kind of like, oh, okay, well, these are like fundamental tools to like establish stuff. You can have, in recovery, there's 2 ways to go. You can go A or you can go the Christ method. And so the Christ method is more of like the cool, here's how I'm going to live the rest of my life. I'm going to do best I can in this moral code that the Bible speaks out. And then there's A, which is basically going back on the things that you've done and always constantly reminding yourself that was there just so that you don't fall back off the wagon, essentially. So as you process that stuff over and over again, and then you mentor other people to do the same thing, you're doing it over and over again with them, and you're kind of constantly going over that stuff. Now, it doesn't mean you're kicking yourself in the balls constantly.
It sounds very shameful.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like I'm unfamiliar with it. So to the outsider, I'm like, it sounds like you're just putting yourself in a shame spiral.
It doesn't really do that. It's more of being able to find gaps in your own accountability. And so it's one of those type of things of being like, if you're telling yourself something in the mirror and it's bullshit, you're able to tell yourself it's bullshit.
Interesting.
And that's something that we as addicts have to kind of do, because we're constantly bullshitting. We're liars all the fucking time. And so that's what I need to get out of that circle. And so, like I said, people that I knew that I loved during my alcoholism and after my divorce and stuff like that are gone because I was just a shady shithead, and I wish I had them back, and I wish they saw the person I am now, but I won't. And that's kind of how it is with a lot of relationships or most of my alcoholism.
Yeah. I mean, let's say minus the alcoholism, because this is, I think, an important part of any. You went through a divorce with non-alcoholic friends, and then you had your marriage as well. And in each case, I feel like it's important to find where are you fitting in next. Who's your next group, And so I don't know, when you lost a lot of those friends from the alcoholism, were you able to like regroup some kind of community?
Some of them actually stuck with me through the whole thing. Like there's some surprising people that people outside my circle would know that are still around. You know what I mean? And then for the most, like about 80% are gone, but they're still there, and we're always like, dude, I knew there's something in you. I'm glad you're doing this now, like that sort of thing. And so it's more, do have a cheering team, but it's not that it's not like it used to be where I can expect them to be there. You know
Sure,
what I mean?
sure.
I have to still pull up my own pants and do my, pull my own bootstraps and do my own thing. as far as the future goes, it's right now it's just in recovery. For the most part, a lot of people I know are recovery people.
Okay.
And that's fine, you know,
Yeah.
and that's cool. But I can't obviously keep doing that because you're going to have to live in the real world eventually and,
Yeah.
you know, deal with your recovery. That's going parallel with your actual life.
Yes.
But for the time being, it's not one of those type of things where I'm outwardly searching for, and this fits into the podcast, any relationship right now.
Okay.
Or, you know, trying to do any of that stuff. I
'Cause
know who I am, and I'm confident with who I am, and I know that
Yeah.
I can nurture and help somebody.
Because that's what it sounds like a lot of the journey is when you break down this stuff is, you know, going from being a serial monogamist, going to having unhealthy coping mechanisms with alcohol, which is essentially a relationship, to going, hey, am I okay on my own?
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of that.
Which I should have been doing after my divorce. You
Sure.
know?
But
but when you're in your 30s and you're in the bars,
and you were married at 24, you know, like that beats some of the military numbers we're putting up in terms of early marriages, you know, like those are not rookie numbers. You're
and so it's so I'm right now I'm not even looking for that. I mean, to be honest, like if we're being like dead honest, like my even like my sex drive is just on dormancy right now. It's completely not even existing. And it's one of those type of things where that's good. It feels great.
Yeah.
To have that feeling instead of just being like the chauvinistic ass that I was when I was working in the bar industry.
Completely driven by your penis.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're working at a bar and you're closing a bar at 2:00 in the morning, there's so much easier. It's easy to get people to come home with you because you're both intoxicated.
Yeah.
Like, let's just hammer this out.
I hate to use the people would use the terminology wounded animals.
Yeah.
So many wounded animals at 2 a.m.
And sometimes you just
at the back of the herd.
And sometimes you just want to drink with your friends and you have to like tell people to like girls to like just leave. Like it's 2 and you have to go and I just want to party with this guy over here. And
I remember being fairly completely single and just kind of being out there and it's like, oh, the bar is closing and somebody wants to go home with me. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then it wouldn't even be like I was talking to this person all night. I really enjoyed their company. I want to see more of them. It was very much going, well, why would I say no?
Yeah.
It wasn't even like I definitely want to say yes, but why would I say no?
Yeah, and it'd be just something as vapid as we really like Tarantino. We talked about it for 30 minutes.
Right.
So, yeah.
Did Tarantino talk about this topic?
I don't know if he has. I know he talked about how Top Gun's a gay movie. That was a pretty fun one.
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't disagree.
I'll ride your tail anytime.
I mean, most movies are gay movies. Okay,
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings is absolutely
Power
homoerotic.
Totally.
That movie is Lord of the Rings, bottoms only. So anyway,
but yeah, so now classically, I mean, if now it's like I said, I'm a little bit more confident. I'm not making a ton of money, but I'd be, as far as emotionally, I'd be a prize for anybody if I'm not settling for it yet. You know, so it's kind of how I am right now.
No, I'm stoked about the recovery journey. I'm stoked about being okay with yourself. I think that's, I don't know, off mic, we were talking about how I have other divorced friends, and it's hard to take that moment from going from being monogamous and having somebody that you're interdependent with, right? Maybe not codependent, but that there's somebody that is filling this void. There's somebody that is taking care of these things, these parts of your life, and then you're like on your own. And how do you take care of those things yourself?
Yeah.
And do you take the time to learn how to take care of those things emotionally, just hygienically? You know, like, do you manage your own calendar? That was a big one for me.
Yeah.
Like, I have to fucking have a social calendar that I'm in charge of. And that is still, since I have a girlfriend now, it once again has been outsourced.
Yeah. No, totally. And like, as you get your 40s too, like the most basic stuff gets harder and harder.
Yeah.
Your energy level gets lower and lower. I mean, I'm not as active, obviously, but like it's one of those type of things where
you look great, dude. I remember your alcoholic days.
Oh yeah, red faced and just bloated. But yeah, like it's the energy thing's lower. So like, obviously, I want a partner or something like that.
Right.
But I'll get there eventually, maybe. Like it's
sure.
one of those type of things where I'm not.
What's the rush?
I'm not too worried about it.
Right.
I'd rather go do something like. It's been something I should have been doing when I was single the first time I got divorced, which is go travel, go live somewhere else for a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and just see how another part of the world works. You know.
Yeah.
And I can do that and not have it seem like a midlife crisis, but more of a I need to just figure my
work
shit
on
out.
you.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's I think that's beautiful.
And I've done a lot of weird stuff. I mean, since then we were talking about what my current situation is. I am in like a rehab in a rural area, and in the time that I was stepped away from working in the alcohol industry, I was building fences. I picked up horses that were down, stuff like that. Like I was doing like legit
farm work.
Yeah, and like hard work, and like and it pushed me to my limits, and being like, dude, I could do a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
you know? And
yeah.
It's just, it was eye opening. So it's one of those type of things where it's like, well,
and then you build, and now you've got like this new confidence in yourself. Like, I never saw myself doing this shit, but here I am.
Yeah, yeah.
And you don't have to worry, like, am I enough on my own? Do I need some partner to validate me and to be
And it's
part
what
of this?
and I have recovery groups that validate me constantly.
Right.
And in ways that you really should be. Like it's when I got
in the good ways.
Yeah, I got my current job. The people that I work with and sponsor, like, dude, they are so stoked to have you. Dude, you're a good asset to like blah blah blah, like that sort of thing. I'm like, all right,
that's
cool.
right. That's right.
So,
I love that. And let's take a little break. I want to adjust your microphone, and we'll be right back with some what's leaving and what's left. Welcome back. We're still here with Roland. Roland, thanks for continuing to talk to us about your journey. This has been really good. I wanted to go back and talk about the marriage and the divorce. And, you know, was there anything else that you've reflected on or learned from that since then? Like, how long did it take you to maybe come to some of these realizations?
All right. So like recently when I was dealing with a lot of this stuff that we were just talking about, I was looking back at the whole marriage, and I kind of felt for my wife. So when while we're in the middle of the marriage, some of the things that were leading me astray were some of the most basic reasons as to why I was having trouble with it. I.e., like, for instance, I was a big reader. My wife wasn't, you know. I can't communicate with you if you don't like the same media I do.
That's
so
a good point.
What's the issue?
That's a very high fidelity moment.
Yeah, and it's
not what you're like, it's what you like.
Yeah, kind of like that. I can't communicate with you, that kind of stuff. It would be something as simple as like I was being controlled on my video game intake, which I'm a gamer.
Sure.
And I couldn't play video games if she was home. So like
she would just be like, "What are you doing?"
So I'd Halo hard until like she would show up, and as soon as I heard the car, I'd have to like shut it off.
Okay.
You know, and then get back into like mode of like making dinner and shit like that.
Yeah.
So in those moments, I would be like, well, she's reductive. It was very reductive to her. Like, she's stupid.
Oh, okay. You were starting to resent her.
Yeah. I was hitting some of those things, and I could be doing at that time when I was making all the money. I'm like, what am I even? You know, what am I pushing when I hold the keys to this whole thing?
I've talked to people who are when you're the breadwinner.
Yeah.
I wasn't like to fight that.
I wasn't doing like the let me kick off my shoes, where's my food woman.
Sure.
I was just like, I should be able to
play video games,
have the things that I have because I've been working for 11 hours. And I know that that's not the best way now. I know that as a person now, basically from what I've learned, and I'm trying not to sound chauvinistic, when you're dealing with a relationship with a woman, all you really have to do is communicate. Like, you just have to talk and listen to what they're saying and just say some stuff back.
You really do.
That's pretty much it.
That's a hard thing that I've been. So my girlfriend and I, we go to couples counseling, and like, I historically have had a tendency to, when problems arise, when there's something that needs to be brought up and needs to be discussed, I freeze, and I'm like, I don't even know where to fucking begin. Number one, number two, I get tired of explaining myself. You know, like, it's like, well, it makes sense to me. Why isn't that good enough? And it's like, well, it can't be. Because now it's not just you. It's a relationship. It's this new thing that you are trying to create. And if you care about it, you better fucking participate. You better speak up, you know?
And it requires learning some patience for some of that stuff. And patience is a discipline. It's not something you just have. It's not talent.
Yeah, no. And I will say that as somebody who still drinks, it's not great for your patience. It's not great for your blood pressure. No. And physically, you immediately want to be impatient.
And currently, like, what I've learned, if I've ran into a place where I'm impatient or something that makes me angry, I actually tell the person, like, give me like 5 minutes, I'll get back to you on that.
No shit.
Yeah, and it really stops me from just being like, I'm gonna take your eyes out with my thumbs, dude. You know, like
that's the polite way of saying I'm gonna take your eyes out.
I need a pause right now, and then I'll come back to you. And like very linearly with thought, actually take apart the stuff that I have. And so when you're able to communicate some of that stuff, and like if there's something that's it's hard in a relationship sometimes, especially with how my wife was, because if she was mad, she was on me about stuff. So it's like, if I can't pause if you're on my back, but basically all I could have done is instead just like paid attention. I would get my rewards and the stuff that I wanted basically if I would just be part and
participate,
compromise and be part of the whole thing and participate in the marriage instead of just being like, oh, I'm still in my 18-year-old self. Let me just play my game. Shut up.
Yeah, it's tough. I think I was shit, man. I think it's common, and I think it's underdiagnosed, and nobody will tell most men this, but through your 20s, you're still kind of a man-child. Yeah. Everybody's still, like, every dude is still hoping, I don't have to fold my laundry. I don't want to have to do this and that. I'm worried about my own kids because I'm doing more for them than my parents did for me. Yeah. And I'm like, how long is it going to be before they learn to truly take care of themselves? Yeah. And are they going to go into relationships expecting other people to do it for them? Yeah, yeah. So I that's not a statement that I'm making to necessarily go into further discussion. It's just something I've observed. Yeah, yeah. And I wanted to throw that out there. I wanted to ask, so with these reflections on your marriage and your need to participate, did you find yourself repeating the marriage mistakes in your relationships after that? It sounded like you were very much like, well, yeah, no, that's the way I am. You're right. Bye.
Kind of, yeah.
So was that like,
I think I was in those relationships, I was kind of buying my own bullshit. There was, because some of these people didn't know me, you know what I mean? And so like when you get into that whole
because
thing,
you only been dating for 2 months?
Yeah. And so like when you're getting a relationship new with people, you can just like, all right, I'm going to set up this new character of Jake, and that's how I'm going to be. Huh. And so, and I was buying some of that bullshit that I made up.
This sounds like that is a very
not having to deal with fear, anything like that.
That observation is very much Jake's higher self looking at Jake, and I you can hear that like that. Oh, no, that's a new version of me. That was not me. That's not my authentic self. Anyway, I just want to point that out. I'm like, you did some work. Yeah, yeah.
And so it was one of those type of things where I was buying my own bullshit, and that's kind of reflective of that stuff. But I mean, it doesn't really mean that I didn't have any heartbreak. I mean, I think the biggest heartbreak I had was about 4 years after my divorce, about 5 years, when I had this one girl that I just was head over heels with, and like still can't kind of not over, but like there's nothing I can do about it. I pretty much steamrolled this whole alcoholism thing. Oh, fuck. But at the same time, she was it. Like she was the and all I had to do was really the same thing. I just had to talk to her. Like, and it was all, and she loved me, and it was one of those type of things where I fucked it up. And so if you keep that pattern going and rolling, I could have learned that back in my marriage. The thing that I have, that's my biggest regret in my marriage, is I didn't actually work that hard at it as I should. I didn't work really at all. Like it was just kind of flowing. We would even go like travel to like Europe for like 6 weeks. It was great, and we were just having a good time. Yeah. Together. But like, and that was like some of the highlights of marriage. But it was just there. It was just like a consistent.
You were roommates.
Yeah, yeah. And I did love her and all that stuff like that. Still, even then, when we were traveling and whatnot. But it wasn't. We weren't hitting goals or glory or. I think, you know what I mean.
That's a great point. Yeah. So I goals is huge. Yeah. It's something that
it was just like, do you want to buy a car? Yeah, why not? Like that wasn't even a goal. It was just something we did when we had a good day buzz coming from a Chili's, like shit like that. So like it wasn't like something we thought of or made attempts to. The goal was like going to Europe or something like that. The goal was eventually to have a family, but we just never went ahead and did it. Right. And then by the time it was ready, the whole thing was on fire. We can't look back and be like, well, I tried, Yeah. And so because of what I did, because of the cheating and stuff like that, I feel really bad because that was pretty traumatic for her. And it's probably something she deals with still to this day. Yeah. Honestly, I think she's never been married again. And if you took a look at her social media, it hasn't been updated since like 2018. The girl's gone. Yeah. But as far as that stuff, and that's kind of what I learned. Now the bad thing is I don't feel bad about the divorce because of those character defects that we both have. Sure. I mean, I'm sure she'll tell you all mine, but the ones that she had with me, I was not a fan of. So it's one of those type of things where I'm good where I was at.
The divorce should have happened. Yeah. Yeah. The things that led up to it. Yeah. There's things to talk about there. Yeah. Yeah. Right. No, that I think it's not to get completely Louis C.K. here because he's canceled. Yeah. But nobody gets divorced because they're in a happy marriage, and so if it proceeded forward, then I think you're correct. You're in a better spot, and she probably is too. As much as there's hurt that you've held on to, and we all hold on to. It's the second most traumatic thing anybody will ever go through is divorce. And I think that's unavoidable, but that doesn't mean that that divorce is not worth pursuing if your happiness is at stake, if your authentic self is at stake. And in both those instances, I think both those things were jeopardized in your marriage. You were resentful because you wanted to be this person, and you felt like you had to shut that person out. Like you couldn't be the reader, you couldn't be the gamer. And it's like, well, those are very integral, important parts to me, and I have to silence them around.
I just had a flashback about the reading part. I was reading The Hobbit, actually, and she's like, I don't like when you read because it's like you're retiring to your cave away from me. And I was like, no, dude, you're way too paranoid about weird shit. Anyways.
And also don't make it about you.
Exactly.
Can't I, and that's an immaturity on her part. Like you both were young, and there's things to learn, and let's, we're not here to shit on exes. We hope she's grown. We hope nothing but the best for her. But it is to say you both were immature. You both were incredibly young. I don't think there's harm in pointing out that and observing that. So definitely don't feel bad about the divorce.
I do not.
I want that to come across in every episode here, is that this is not the end of the world, that there is no, as traumatic as it is, as painful as it is, it's an important thing to be available. It's not a necessary thing. I'm not saying every married person should get divorced, but it's very much like, I think it's healthy for every married couple to understand that it's on the table. I think it's really unhealthy for people to say that, well, divorce is out of the question. I would never. And it's like, well, you might want to have it in the back of your mind. Because otherwise you allow things to fester. You allow things to just kind of, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? I know this is unrelated to anything. It's much broader discussion.
No, that's okay.
Divorce.
The only thing I could think of is if you're young like I was, don't be afraid to grow, really. I mean, you can still have a marriage and have growth in there. You just have to understand that things shift and change. And when they do, it doesn't have to be apart. It doesn't have to be that scary. It can just be, well, let's talk about this weird thing that's going on because my brain is now becoming mature.
Right.
Things like that where you're dealing with those sorts of things. It doesn't have to be a heartbreak and let's destroy this entire family just because you decide you don't like big trucks anymore and you drive Priuses or something. I don't know what it is, but
important personality traits.
The things that because you want to pursue passions, you should be able to talk to your mate about that,
right?
And have those things. But if it's just a deadlock, I'm just beginning to hate this person, then it might be time to take a look at it.
I want to touch on two things that you brought up just now. You talked about growth. It's come up in my relationship recently. Like, my girlfriend was going to therapy. I could not afford therapy. Things haven't been financially great over here. But and then we hit speed bumps. We hit a rocky place, and her friend input well, you've been doing this work and he hasn't. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, but I'm growing, right? And it's like, maybe not, dude. Are you growing at the same pace as the other person? Are you doing the work that the other person is putting in? So growing together, versus one person growing and then another person kind of just getting stuck. I see that. And then with that growing together is, you might become different people. You might grow apart. You might realize you're different people, but you'll be healthy and communicative throughout it. And with the growth is setting goals, because I'm bad about setting goals. I thought I was going to die at 25.
Really?
When I was like a teenager. I was like, I drive so much. The odds of me dying are high. I never saw a life past 25 for me, right? And so goals is kind of a weird thing to put together. But I find that if you don't have goals and your goals aren't communicated with your partner and you don't know what they are, then you are much more driven by the day-to-day feelings, by the whims, by the impulses. And that's where you are likely to get in trouble. It's like, I don't know what my long-term plan is with this person. I thought I was going to die. I thought a meteor was going to hit the earth. I don't know. So that's as horrible as I am about goals. I recognize that if I don't think about them and have them, I'm just going to do whatever feels good in the moment.
Yep. Yeah, you're going to not have any self-discipline.
Right. Because why?
Yeah.
It's like, what am I working towards?
It's being stagnant is definitely a slow death, for everything, like
Yeah.
for your brain, for your body, for all that stuff. You just
Yeah.
don't want to. I mean, it's good to have to achieve these things, and if you have somebody that you can achieve them with together, then it makes it even better. And
Right.
so, yeah, it's and that's kind of what, like I said, what I was dealing with in my old marriage too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're same. Like
Mhm.
it felt. Yeah, we didn't have goals. It was very and
Like-
alcohol played a part in my divorce too.
Did it?
Yeah, it was an easy way to numb
Mhm.
the conversations that should have happened. It
Yeah.
was an easy way to like, well, we should talk about these things, but
Mhm.
what if we just drank a whole bunch every night and sat on opposite ends of a couch?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I needed a couple weeks of sobriety to really kind of snap out and go like, what's going on?
Mhm.
Things have been wrong for a long time, and we haven't said a fucking word
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But this is what we do instead. And that was a wake up call. Was sobriety? Yeah, it wasn't a permanent sobriety for me, but it was a forced, medically mandated one. And it helps you kind of really, the cloud lifts. You don't have that what would you say, safety blanket,
Mhm.
And now everything's laid bare, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Things suck actually, and we should talk about it.
I mean, that's why I always like, I don't know, I like people that deal with like their real shit by going to like hardcore shows, or like, I'm gonna climb this mountain because I'm pissed. You're like, wow, dude, like how you have such discipline to be able to do something like that.
Mhm.
And so to be able to, I don't know, it's true. Alcohol it is a cover up for everything, and it just makes everything kind of go away. It's just, it's putting stuff in the closet that will
Totally.
eventually come out again.
And I know you've talked a good bit about recovery and
Mhm.
and things you're into.
Mhm.
One thing I ask everybody is, what are some of the let's go through the coping mechanisms that you had after your divorce,
Okay.
and then the coping mechanisms you've developed since then, right? Kind of the timeline, the chronology of Roland's coping mechanisms.
Okay, so yeah, it was coping afterwards was alcohol. It was basically getting into new scenes here, learning about new people, new things, making a new safe area for yourself. Widening, I guess, is what you should say than what it was before. And just a 24-year-old girl. That was my coping mechanism.
Oh man.
Yeah. And then now, coping with stuff, it takes time. And I understand that, and I designate time for it. I also am a lot more, I'm capable of owning up to my own shit. So I am always able to say, well, that's totally my bad. Like, I just totally did that, and I don't place blame. I used to be a victim, definitely a victim all the time. So I had that victim mentality. Got rid of that real fast because no one else is making me do the things I do. I'm clearly here by myself doing it.
Right.
Going out to the people that I've harmed and doing all that stuff in the past because of what I've done in recovery.
And that's part of the 12-step.
Yeah, that is also a coping mechanism, because it's not just for me to be like here to hopefully hear it's cool, man, let's be friends again, or let's figure this. It's more just like, hey, I did some shit. If you never talk to me, you can find whatever. But like, I identify myself in this situation with you, and I hear you, and I know what you're talking.
Is that that the apology tour? Is that a rough process?
Not
Did you find
really.
it difficult? Okay.
I was actually doing emails because it's more easier for me to
write.
I'm a better writer than I am a speaker, and that starts the conversation, and people would come back. Thankfully, the people that I actually, because there's also things where you can carry resentments and not want to make amends with people.
Yeah.
And so there's people that I just never did, and it's just because I just don't. I'm like, I pissed you off, but you're not fundamental to my life, so I don't really need you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's because I carry resentment or something like that, and I just don't want to have to like. It sucks to have to. It sounds like it's a cop out, but you don't want to have to like rehash 4 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't want to go back and be like, oh yeah, that one thing.
No,
All right, I'm still
it's not a
sorry.
cop-out. Yeah.
Yeah.
After 4 years, I get it. Like it's like, dude, I knew how bad it felt then.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to take myself back to a place where it feels that bad.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm trying to make myself better so I don't feel that way, but having to re-explain that person the things that he did, it takes me back to that bad place. I
Yeah.
feel all the bad things.
Yeah, and I might drink again too. And that's the whole thing is
Right.
you don't want to
put yourself in that. Yeah.
What I have found though is that when people are having issues right now, and that I've had fallen outs with, if they're having issues of their own with alcoholism or any kind of addiction, they'll hit me up, you know, and it's not even like there's no handshake of like, hey man, been a long time. It's like, hey, so I got this problem right now.
Oh,
and I'm like, okay, well, this is my my arena. Let's talk about it and figure this stuff out for you. You know,
Yeah.
so.
and especially if you're working around it all the time.
I've had a few people I never even thought would talk to again just hit me up because they had some issues.
No shit.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's stuff like that. Anyway, so my coping mechanism is definitely being honest. Integrity is a big part of my life now. Always being honest, always being clear. I want to be Captain America. I don't want to be Iron Man. And that's kind of how I always look at it. That's actually my
wait.
metaphor
I
for
need you to dive into that analogy.
yeah.
You can't just say that.
Yeah.
What is Captain America doing that Iron Man isn't?
Captain America's pretty much always honest and sticks to his guns and does his thing.
Right.
Iron Man's the loose cannon,
Shady
might
playboy.
do some dumb shit, that sort of thing. Captain America's always on point, always going to tell you the truth and shoot you straight.
Okay, gotcha.
And so that's how I always did it as a metaphor. I'm like, I always want to be Captain America.
It's an easy mnemonic device.
Yeah,
To like,
and it's easier to be that way because you don't have to remember all your lies. And so,
yeah,
you don't have to recount all that shit and be like, what did I tell that person?
right.
Instead of just being like, I just don't really want to hang out with you. You can just say that to somebody and just be completely honest and be like, it's because of this vibe you put out and I'm just not into it.
Right.
And so, and I've been I've been blunt and to the point in the last year and a half, and it's been fine,
Good.
and people just are really react positive to it,
Yeah. So 8 years post-divorce, not to, I want to
Let's keep going.
I want to put it right back on the tracks as we come up.
Yeah. Sorry about the timeline on this, guys. It's kind of jumping all over the place. I'm sorry.
No, it's good shit.
I hope it makes sense.
Well, no, this is what I like is that you've got a lot in the rear view since the divorce, and a lot of the guests that we've had so far, it's very much it's in
I've
the
heard
back
some
seat.
of them are like right there.
Yeah,
like it was 6 months ago. I'm like, whoa, dude.
Yeah, no, it's very present for a lot of our guests, and so I like the long view from today to the divorce and seeing all those things. So, yeah, like, oh balls, I fucking forgot what I was gonna say. It's okay. Like, but do you feel like with it 8 years in your past that the worst of it's behind you, or do you still feel like you're carrying maybe some of it to this day?
I don't carry much about it. I've probably put that to bed probably 6 years ago as far as the whole thing goes.
Okay.
I know that I can look at stuff that how I was, about, look at some of that stuff and feel remorse about it. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, it's a double-edged sword where it's like, it's over dope, but like I sucked.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And as once you have that recourse, it's easier to kind of move on with with your life. It's not hard.
Would you say for listeners that you can expect to be dealing with this for 2 years after your divorce?
Yeah, I mean, yes, and deal with it. Like, don't do what I did. Don't lily hop into relationships. Don't. Just because the bed isn't warm anymore doesn't mean that you have to put a body there. Just put a fucking dog there. And like, you don't have to just deal with yourself first, because every woman or man, depends on whatever you're doing,
whatever you're into,
doesn't want somebody that's broken. They don't need more baggage in their life. And so like, anybody doesn't need more baggage. I don't want to meet a person and be like, please give me all your problems and unload. I really want to be for years. Let's do this together. And to get all that stuff out, because as best you can, obviously we all have some sort of trauma or something. There's always going to be some sort of scar that's on us. As long as you can identify what they are to that person eventually or soon, easy enough. But figure out who you are. You can't be in a relationship with somebody if you don't know who the fuck you are. And just kind of sort your stuff out, man. Like, no one wants to deal with your shit. So, yes, you will have some time to deal with it. Take some time off. Go do whatever you want. Go get your groove back. Go to fucking Jamaica. I don't care. But like, do something that will give you some time to get centered. And don't jump on a new stuff. Like, it sounds weird, but like, don't be like, oh, I'm divorced now, I have to learn guitar and learn Japanese. You know, like right off the bat.
Ouch. This is like.
Well, no, I'm not using it's because I want to learn Japanese. I was going to ask you about that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, but like it's one of those type of things. Let's just say don't pick up some new stuff to fill in that gap to distract you from the fact that you're not working on shit.
Sure. No, don't replace honest internal work with a new hobby.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
you know,
like that looks like work. It feels productive,
Yeah.
but it's not the work.
Yeah.
It is not the shit your brain needs
Yeah.
to move on from this horribly traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's painful. But yeah, I am learning Japanese, you dickhead.
How hard? Well,
I mean, I started learning Japanese though during COVID. It was it was 5 years after my divorce. I was learning Japanese. So,
but like say like something like that. I don't know. It's to me in my head. I just feel like if you're gonna get into something to kind of cover that time that you're kind of not propelling yourself forward or something like that, do something that will help others. You know, like go to school, and you really want to change, go to school, become an architect, move to fucking Norway, have a whole different life, but really put your work in to do it. You know, like do something that's going to really like, don't just jump around and be like, you know, I'm going to make a flower wall here and that's going to be my new thing. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know if that sounds wrong, but like if you're doing something small and Band-Aid, like to put a temporary Band-Aid on top of some sort of wound, you're not doing enough to actually heal it, you know?
Yeah.
And so, I mean...
I think that's great.
Yeah.
When you say that temporary Band-Aid, like... Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I see. I get the picture.
Yeah.
And that's... I think that's a really good image. Any closing thoughts for listeners? I think you've given... like I said, I really appreciate your long view from the divorce and your journey with sobriety and being very open. So I think there's a lot that a listener will get from this. Is there any closing thoughts that you want to share with somebody who's considering divorce, who is going through a divorce?
For some reason I thought about my parents all of a sudden.
Oh man. I mean, yeah, that makes sense though.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just thought about like, this is really weird.
Yeah,
okay.
Sure. Let's go.
So all of a sudden I thought about like how when I got married, I didn't want to be like my parents, you know, and I didn't want to get divorced. And I didn't want to do what they did, and they did exactly what they did. And I don't think of divorce as a thing that's like a big D word, you know, like I mean, obviously you have kids, it might be a little bit harder, but it's not that big. It's not that hard of a thing if you're trying to end a relationship. It's something that you're kind of separating from that stuff from. And yeah, just make sure you're doing it as honest as you can. And if you have a relationship with somebody before you sign this paper, just let your spouse know, because even that can turn into a shit show. There could be all kinds of stuff. So yeah, just get comfortable with yourself, because you'll be with yourself for a while.
I think that's that is absolutely great advice, and I think everything you shared today shows you practicing what you preach, and that's awesome. Man, Roland, it's been great catching up with you again, and I know that it's been 8 years since you've been divorced, so to go on a journey with us, it means a lot. Thank you for your vulnerability and for your story. And this has been my name's William. My guest has been Roland. This is What's Leaving, What's Left. And have a great day.
Bye.
What's Leaving and What's Left is written, produced, and hosted by William. Nothing the host or guests say should be construed as legal or psychiatric advice, so please, lawyer up and get therapy. Thank you so much for listening. Please continue to listen, like, subscribe, and share with a friend you believe may benefit from this story.